Welcome. Today is Thursday, January 16th, 2025. It is 1:30 p.m. and we'd like to call this special meeting to order. Resolution, please.
Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Greater Madawaska calls to order the January 16th, 2025 Special Council meeting at 1:30 p.m.
Do we have a mover? Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Popke. All in favor? That is unanimous, so carried. 2.1, approval of agenda. Resolution, please.
That the agenda of the Special Council meeting of January 16th, 2025 be approved as presented.
Do we have a mover? Councillor Tripp, second by Councillor Levesque. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? There is none seen. Thank you. Section 4, Planning and Building Department, Official Plan Review Follow-Up. Resolution, please.
That Council directs staff to prepare a work plan for developing a secondary plan for the village of Calabogie.
Thank you. Do we have a mover? Councillor Popke, second by Councillor Levesque. All in favor?
Wait a minute.
Sorry, we need background. It's one of those days. Yeah, yes. My apologies. Tracy, would you like to take the helm?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Nice to see you this afternoon. I think this is my first actual report to you today. Sorry?
Okay. I just didn't hear the mic.
I think it's on. Yeah. So you have my report. Maybe I'll just go through that briefly, and then I think the hope today is a bit of a roundtable discussion about next steps from the EcoView official plan project from last year. So you heard that presentation from EcoView staff back in November, and there were 5 kind of options that fell out of EcoView's report. So just very briefly, because you've seen those already, first option was just status quo, continue what we're doing with the current official plan. And as you know, a new provincial policy statement was released by the province in the fall. So we could just continue on. The county should be updating the official plan to incorporate those new official plan policies. Our understanding from county staff is there's no set timeline to do that at this point. They have included it in the budget as an item to update the official plan, but we don't really have a timeline for that. So status quo would be to just wait and wait for the county to update the official plan with the new provincial policy statements and potentially new housing policies that might help growth in the lower tier municipalities. That's not really our recommendation today, to do nothing, so we'll move on. Option 2, the county's official plan does have some special rural policies for this township, and they're really related to recreation and tourism. So while we could revisit those in terms of encouraging growth and targeting growth in the township, I think because those policies are very specific to recreational and tourism growth in the township, that's maybe not where we want to focus our energy for now. The third option presented by EcoView was to introduce a secondary plan, and that is kind of what I would like to talk to you about in greater detail today. So I'm going to park that and just go on to the other 2 options, and then we'll come back to that. So the fourth option was to designate more village community lands within the township and to amend the current village community plans to permit a wider range of uses, densities, that kind of thing. So as you know, we just have one village community in the township. The policies that govern the village community apply to all the village communities in the entire county. They're not specific to this township. And so amending those policies would require buy-in from the other municipalities that are affected and from the county as well. So it might be difficult to try to amend those broad policies to try to encourage growth in our own village community. I don't know all of the history, but I understand there were other, I'll use the term settlement areas because that's the term the provincial policy statement uses. There were other settlement areas recognized in this township historically, and now there is just one. So we can talk about that as we go forward as well. But as far as changing the broad village community policies in the county official plan, I think if our goal is to encourage growth in this township, it would be difficult for us to try to amend those policies without buy-in from all of the other municipalities that are affected. in terms of designating other possible village community settlement areas. We can talk about that. We can also talk about, is there an interest, potential to expand the settlement area of Calabogie itself? You probably know, maybe you don't, the provincial policy statement used to have pretty strict policies for when you could change a settlement area boundary or designate a new settlement area, only when you were doing what they call a comprehensive review or a massive overhaul of your official plan. The 2024 provincial policy statement has opened that up a little bit and made it easier for municipalities to change settlement area boundaries and to designate new settlement areas. So there is the potential, if we're going to talk about a secondary plan for Calabogie, we might want to talk about the boundaries of Calabogie. Is there an interest in making the settlement area bigger or adjusting the boundaries? So that's something we can talk about too. And the fifth option presented by EcoView was to create some township-specific policies within the county official plan. And there are a couple of lower tier municipalities in the county, as I'm sure you know, that do have township-specific policies in the official plan. Again, I think we could do that, but my thinking is if we consider a secondary plan that's specific to the areas we want to target for growth, we can provide a lot more detail, have a more comprehensive plan for our growth areas through a secondary plan, rather than just putting policies within the county's official plan. So my suggestion for us for discussion is to consider the creation of a secondary plan for the village of Calabogie. Do you want to talk about those options or further before we get into the secondary plan discussion? Maybe I'll stop there first.
Any questions from council? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Part of the reason we're going through this process is because of the way the county is allowing large developments outside of settlement boundaries, which doesn't make any sense to me. Why have a boundary if you're allowed to develop anywhere? And if we do the just one community, yes, we can drive growth to that community, but it doesn't keep that random growth from going anywhere. As well, I don't know when it happened, but those settlement areas have been there since the 1830s, for the most part. Suddenly, they're no longer considered villages. And the problem with that is the zoning for rural includes things like you can have a contractor's yard or shop, mining exploration, logging hauler, that kind of thing that's permitted in rural areas. But these are villages. Now, if it was a village designation, if you wanted to have a business, you would have it designated hamlet commercial. And that doesn't include mining operations, logging, etc. So it is critical, first of all, to make sure that those villages are recognized as villages. The county has a GIS map that shows them as villages. Don't know why it isn't being used as the schedule for planning. So they need to be recognized as villages, and I really need to understand why we are bothering with settlement area boundaries if they don't matter. So I agree, we really do need a detailed plan for Calabogie because that's where we want to drive growth. But without balancing out the needs of the rest, we're ignoring the problem.
Thank you. Any other further comments or response? Councillor Levesque.
Thank you, Tracy, for that. I would agree with Councillor Thompson, and therein lies, I guess, the initial, concern that we all had when we first came in, is that really it was just random sprawl growth, and it just wasn't anywhere to really define what it needs to be or what it should be. Later on, as Councillor Thompson dug in deeper, she determined that the other settlement areas topic of all of that was also part of it. So I think part of the other thing that we had also discussed is really how do we want things to progress and move along? So we've got subdivisions now on the record that we didn't have before. What happens with those? Right now, there's really not much to govern those except the official plan and Ontario. We don't really have any influence on it. It's been done. And this is not to say that the technical requirements are a big concern. Sometimes they do play a part. But it's really about the style and the fit of where these things come into play, what they look like, how big should they be, lot sizes, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the things I think we'd like to continue to influence. And in looking at the options, you know, there's a lot of blending with some of them. And I would almost say there's a sixth option, which is potentially 2 to 5. You know, because all of those things we talk about touch on all of those things except for number 1, which is status quo, do nothing. So that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? No. For me?
If we could give her an opportunity
that's-
to respond.
yeah. Well, I was going to suggest that probably when you go through your secondary plan overview, some of these points will be within the secondary plan overview. So I was thinking that your response would probably be talking about the second plan overview, and then we can touch on points that have been brought up. Does that make sense? Yeah. Tracy, if you would walk us through that then, please, if you feel comfortable, or if you want to do response now, it's totally up to you.
Well, sure, maybe I'll just speak to the
Yeah.
comments. Absolutely hear you, respect, understand the concerns. I guess the challenge we have is that right now, at least, we fall under the County of Renfrew's official plan. And so the rural policies in the official plan do permit all of those land uses, including residential subdivisions. And so we can't kind of contravene the official plan by saying those are not going to be permitted in this township unless we create our own official plan and, you know, separate ourselves from the county. But right now we fall under the county's official plan, which does permit rural subdivisions, for example, and the provincial policy statement also permits rural subdivisions, rural residential land uses. Not what you want to hear necessarily, but that's the policy framework we're working under right now, right? So I completely agree. I'd love to see us play a bigger role in planning, and I'm working to kind of start to build those relationships with county staff and get more information and you know, play a bigger role so we can be involved earlier in the process and help to guide, you know, be involved in development. So that's definitely one of my intentions going forward. Yeah, but I hear your comments about kind of sprawl and rural land uses, and you know, we'd like to control those a bit more. We have to work within what's permitted within the official plan, and so we can't prohibit those uses, but hopefully we can work to kind of manage them, manage their growth, manage compatibility, that kind of thing.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson?
Can we do anything to tighten up some of the definitions of what is locally, what is it, blends in, locally appropriate? Because if you go from wilderness to, or farm, to 52 houses, is that locally appropriate? And this is where the sprawl is coming from. Can we just tighten up some of those definitions and say it can't be larger than the village itself? Because, you know, that's how it's being seen.
Thank you.
I was just looking to see if there was a definition in the provincial policy statement, because there's a lot of planning definitions there that speak to locally appropriate, because as you know, Councillor Thompson, the provincial policy statement does talk about that development that is locally appropriate. I guess the short answer to your question is I don't know yet, but I'm making notes. That's something we can talk about, is how can we regulate that? I have seen official plan policies that limit the size of subdivisions, for example, in rural areas. Again, those policies don't exist in the official plan that we are governed by right now. So, but here I'm hearing the comments. So yeah, that's something we can talk about further. Yeah. Shall I continue?
Yep,
yeah.
please do.
And so I appreciate your comments about how some of these options overlap. Absolutely, that's what we've talked about as staff, is they're not all kind of independent. They absolutely overlap. So yeah, we may want to revisit some of the rural development policies that are unique to Greater Madawaska. The secondary plan, option 3, we'll get into that in just a minute. And yeah, and again, the whole village community policies and the idea of establishing other village communities, we can talk about that, and or expanding the village community designation for Calabogie, the boundaries, if we want to visit that. So a secondary plan is a plan that falls within an official plan. So it's created through an official plan amendment. There are quite a few examples in the province. Some are rural townships on private services like us, and some are very urban, downtown urban areas where municipalities have really tried to create design guidelines and predetermined servicing infrastructure, that kind of stuff. So obviously those are not so specific to us. There's a couple of very good rural examples though. So the idea would be to, let's just focus on Calabogie as an example. So the idea would be to kind of analyze the community, go through a public participation, design, charrette, visioning exercise with the public, and look at where there's parcels of land that have potential for development. Think about land use compatibility, what kind of growth do we want, residential, services, commercial, all of those things. How do they fit together? Think about things like recreation trails, road network. So it's basically trying to make a vision, I guess, for a complete community. And I think different than just putting policies in the official plan, like some of the other townships have done, is to create a secondary plan. I think the optics of that are really good to kind of show to the world, to developers, future residents. We've given a lot of thought to this community in consultation with the community, and this is how we'd like to grow and how we'd like to interact with our waterfront and our trail network, all of those things. So a secondary plan is a kind of focused, comprehensive plan for our community and how the land uses interact. So I think that's something we should consider for Calabogie. We can consider the boundaries of the village at the same time. So if we were doing an official plan amendment to implement a secondary plan, we could use the same official plan amendment, I think, to expand or modify the boundaries of the settlement area, if that's something that makes sense through the design visioning exercise, and can also consider other settlement areas at the same time, if that's something that council wants to do. So, yeah.
Any questions from council? Councillor Thompson, just ask you to put your mic on, please.
Sorry, I was just trying to decide if I wanted to ask.
Okay.
Yeah, so what you're saying is at this meeting, we'll decide on one, but we're still open to coming up with ideas that we can work on the other options, like tightening up definitions, like option 2. I think I've covered it. Restricting the size of developments. Since Renfrew County is going through the process of updating their OP, is there any wiggle room for us to have more input as they go forward? I don't think I've ever seen a public meeting in our township ever when the official plan from the county was being done. It's always been in Pembroke, which is really not even in our county. Is there any way we can get more input at that stage while it's open?
Good.
Thanks.
So two things there. I don't think the county is undertaking an official plan review right now. They should, in order to implement the 2024 provincial policies into the county's official plan, but I don't think they have any mandate to do that yet. But at some point, the intention from the province is that we will all update our lower tier plans and so on to match the provincial policy. So that needs to happen at some point. Can we play a bigger role? I hope so. That would be my hope, is, if whatever the county is doing in terms of policy, that we speak up. And yes, we'd like to have some public consultation, a public meeting in this part of the county, absolutely. So I think the answer is yes, it would certainly be my intention to play a bigger role. In terms of the options here and the goal for today, I guess my hope, and maybe Renee wants to speak up too, is, to get a bit of direction from you on where you might like to go with this. It doesn't have to be just one. If you say, yes, we're interested in a secondary plan, come back with a bit of a work plan of what that might look like, but we're also interested in, as you said, in looking at the other, reestablishing other settlement areas, or whatever comes out. I'm looking for direction from you, I guess, on where you'd like us to go with this next. And that may happen in one big project. Maybe it's a couple of things we work at in parallel.
Yeah, thank you. And excuse me. And as the resolution before us today is the council directs staff to prepare a work plan for developing a secondary plan. So that's going to be not just limiting to the one option, but I think they'll take it into holistic view and work together and work out what we're, through our input, through public input, and then bring something back for us. So today was sort of a direction.
Yeah, so what happens here is we're not necessarily saying that a council approve developing a secondary plan. It's a work plan. So at this point, we want to take in what council has to say and review options. So the planner's been listening to all of the questions and whatnot. The intent here would be to come back to council with a work plan on how to address some of the concerns, and it could be in different ways. So just to clarify, it's to direct staff to prepare a work plan for developing a secondary plan, not direct staff to develop a secondary plan. So if council would either want to adjust the recommendation to include other options, this is the time.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Councillor Thompson?
So we'll need to change the intent. So while I agree, yes, a secondary plan for Calabogie is essential because this is where the growth, most of the growth is. But if we can add to that we need to solve the problem, I don't know how we do it in official terms, but solve the issue of large developments outside of the village areas and village areas that aren't being zoned properly to accommodate that kind of existence. I don't know whether or not we have to actually declare them to be village communities to change the zoning to rural residential with hamlet HAC within that. I don't know. That's something I'd like to explore. This is obviously not the exact wording we'd put on the motion.
Go ahead.
The wheels are turning. Can we just explore that a little bit more?
Certainly.
So are you thinking, Councillor Thompson, that the areas where there's larger residential development or larger scale development outside the settlement areas, are you pondering if those should be designated as settlement areas? No. Can you kind of restate?
No, I'm not saying that the larger subdivisions that are going in now should become villages. No. No. I want the existing villages to be treated as such. Yeah.
Yep, respond. Yep.
Sure. So yeah, I guess the process would be to consider redesignating those as village communities. That's the term the county official plan uses. And so again, I don't fully know why they were removed in the past, but it doesn't really matter. Here we are, and we're contemplating amendments to the official plan that are important to this township. So if that's something that council would like to consider, we can go back and revisit those, and what are the appropriate boundaries for those settlement areas. So I'm absolutely, if that's where you'd like to go, that's absolutely fine. Again, we can encourage development to those settlement areas as well as Calabogie. We can create policies that permit uses in those areas that council wants to see. We can't prohibit residential development like the subdivisions that you're seeing right now. We can't prohibit those outside of the settlement areas. The official plan allows those, and so does the provincial policy statement. So I would say the only way we could really go there would be to have our own official plan, because right now we fall under the county's official plan, and those policies do permit a wide range of land uses outside the settlement areas, including residential subdivisions.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
But I don't want to prohibit, we don't want to prohibit people subdividing and, corner of the farm property now going to an uncle. But we don't want to create these little mini settlements that aren't mixed use. They're not viable communities. They're bedroom communities. So it's limiting the number of lots. It's got to be limiting the number of lots that don't have all the amenities that a settlement needs to thrive, or else we risk doing the exact opposite of what we were elected to guard, safeguard. We're going to turn this whole township into a bedroom community, and that's not what we want. So if we can tighten up that definition of what is locally appropriate, which means limiting. And it's, we have a limit to the number of lots you can subdivide at a time in the Renfrew County Plan by consent, right? Yes. So why can't we limit the number of lots through subdivision that are subdivided at a time? There must be a way without changing the entire Renfrew County Plan.
Yeah, okay. I really appreciate the clarification, the discussion. We'll consider that and, discuss, and we can continue this discussion. And you're right, the county official plan does limit the number of lots that can be created through the severance process and various criteria if you create more than 3 in lot sizes. There are not policies like that for subdivisions. So I think if that's what we want, that probably is an official plan policy that would need to be created, but I will give that some further thought, and we can talk about that further. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Levesque.
Just in looking at this, Tracy, I guess how I see it, because initially when we said when we started all this, some of these options weren't on the table. It really wasn't what we envisioned, and that's great because that's the input we need, because we are not experts, and that's kind of how it started, right? Coming back with the secondary plan, I look at this list as a prioritized set of plans or actions, whatever you want to call them. So the first for me is the option 3, which is to come back with that work plan for that. But in looking at, in doing that, we may consider the items that are in item 4, option 4, which is back to what we just talked about, which is expanding maybe the scope of just Calabogie. Like the secondary plan is part of it, but also looking at the other villages within the township to kind of incorporate a kind of a single view of what that looks like. The option 2 and option 5, they're very, very close, except one calls it township-specific policies and the other calls it special rural policies. And I'm wondering if that could be like a phase 2 or a phase 3, a part of a global plan that says, when we're done all this, we've learned a lot more than we do now, and we're going to have an idea of what those things might look like by that point. So that's whatever phase 2 or whatever that might be in 2 years, for instance, through the development of these other plans. And also you're coming into this as well, so I'm sure you'll have your views on what you experience as you move along. But whether they're township-specific policies or special rural policies, they almost sound like one and the same, but I know they're not, because one's more global than the other. But I don't know what that means in terms of, do you blend those? Can you blend them? Should you blend them? What does it look like? So that's just my view on that. But whereas, just to, I guess, to summarize the secondary plan for the village and incorporate the village community aspect of the rest of the township and whatever that means, without obviously increasing the scope to the point where you can't accomplish anything, as we know what that looks like. And then a phase 2 would be looking at the rural/township policies.
Thank you. Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, just that it sounds like the wording of the recommendation today, we can modify that to suit, because I kind of focused just on the secondary plan, but I'm hearing the comments for sure. So we can modify that recommendation to include a broader scope as council wishes, for sure.
Thank you. Any other? Councillor Tripp.
Thank you. Really interesting and helpful discussion. Thank you, both from council and from your desk. I feel that the secondary plan and the consultation process through that plan will also support a lot of the discussions that we're having outside the five of us for these conversations to land on the floor of the community, because it's the passion of the community that we all saw when we were being elected to help shape the vision of where do we want to be in 25 years. And that needs to start now to protect and to shape and to help define. And I think the community will have a large input into that discussion through the consultation process as part of this secondary plan. So it's very much a hybrid model. Let's launch the plan, get the work plan running, get the consultations, get the feedback, mindful of the other opportunities and options that are on the table as well to feed into that. So work well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comment? Councillor Thompson.
I'm also wondering if we can get more control of the planning process through procedural changes. One of the things that has bothered me is that staff makes decisions about whether something is a subdivision is okay with the fire department, with the school board, with, they consult these agencies, and I don't know if it's just a check mark that somebody will say, and whether they really look at the whole plan. Does the fire department look at the whole community plan and say, yes, this is okay, or do they just look in that development, it's okay? So would it be possible, would it be procedurally possible, and this is probably a question for Renee as well, to, rather than staff make those decisions about what's locally appropriate, because by the time it comes to council, they've already made those decisions, to have it come to council at that stage so we can decide if it's locally appropriate and if it works within the township, if it works for the benefit of the whole township, not just thinking about each development as a separate entity, but considering how it works into the whole. I think we need public input, and that's what our job is, to reflect what the public wants. At that point, I don't think it should be at a staff level, or should proceed past that level without council. But at least being aware that there's a development going in.
Yeah, I'll throw a response out for that. And I think if we do this process appropriately, and it's not going to be a one-time, it's going to be a work in progress. We're going to have input, public's going to have input on it itself. And if we build it correctly and give the mandate to staff to do their job the way it should be done, they're professionals, and I think we need to put our trust in them that if they've given a mandate and they've given the parameters of what's required for them to approve or not approve, and if that structure is sound, I think then we do not need to come back to council on that. I think if we set the parameters and set the structure correctly, then we should trust them in their ability to do their jobs professionally. Councillor Thompson?
It's not a matter of trust. I trust them to do their jobs properly. It's a matter of direction. If we can't tighten up those definitions, if we can't give them a checklist where they can say, yes, I know that this works with council, yes, this works, yes, they'll like it, check those boxes. If we can't provide that direction beforehand so that they're confident they are doing what's best for the community, then I think we need to have them come to us, because each situation is going to be different. We can't say, we can try to say carte blanche, this is how it should work, this is the checklist. But I think it's far better for us to consider, because we represent the community, how it will affect the entire community and not just that subdivision. Do you see what I mean? I'm not saying I don't trust the staff to do their jobs. I'm saying there's a disconnect right now between the direction from the people to staff to know if they're following it properly.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
so we better get.
I think Renee,
set. Renee?
Are you referring to pre-consultation versus when we bring the draft conditions to you? When we're doing pre-consultation, which includes the county, we're again just a commenting agency. When we're considering staff and making those decisions on the broader, like what this community needs, the county is the deciding factor, and they're the ones. We are not the ones. We don't have that type of input at our level. They're the county planners are the ones that are sitting there and following the official plan and saying, yes, this is what we allow. We do not have that voice at the table. We provide, we will sit and say, well, the council, you know, will recommend or will influence the fact that it's not ideal to have this type of development or whatnot in our community. But otherwise, we don't have that voice. So even if we developed policy here, we are not the deciding factor on pushing or putting that application forward. Without consulting with us, the developers can go straight to the county and apply for their permits. They're just being courteous by having a conversation with us when they do have a conversation. Otherwise, it's all at the county level. So adding direction to township staff is not going to change the process, because we're a commenting agency, and we are not part of that process at all at this point.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
so that does underline the importance of what we're doing now, is to make sure the county planners understand what our people do, and that's what we really need to achieve. Do you agree?
It is critical for us to be part and build those relationships with the county and really influence, when they open up the official plan, how it impacts our communities. That is critical. And when they open it up, we need to be at that table. And when reviewing the old review of official plan, they had a public meeting in Calabogie. The public meeting did not go to the other locations, and I believe there was one. So it's pushing for more influence in that way, and having our community more engaged with the fact that the official plan is open and we need your voice. But when we're considering what we are doing right now, the planner has provided the best we can do with what we have today.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns? None. Has there been change in the resolution? If so, could we read it out, please?
So in drafting a resolution, we'll talk about how you want to iron this out. I'm assuming, so right now we're not approving, again, a secondary plan, but we're just saying to prepare a work plan. The option is to adjust the resolution to develop a work plan for a secondary plan while considering phases or option for the other options. So what I'm heading towards is that you're not just going to receive a secondary plan review work plan, but it's going to consider all the other components. It gives us an opportunity to take what we heard today, come back with, considering the definitions for locally appropriate development, the village boundaries and what would be required, and what is the implications of that. So we wouldn't want to, and I think this is what the planner was trying to reinforce, is that putting a lot of time and money into, and tax dollars into reinstating a boundary. If that boundary means nothing, then there's a lot of work there. So we need to better understand, what is that need, and will it change anything? The last thing I want to see is spending funds and years putting time into policy that's going to be added to the official plan and actually not be applied at any time, because it doesn't change anything. Okay, so So the resolution would be that council directs staff to prepare a work plan for developing a secondary plan for the village of Calabogie while considering other options from the local OP review report.
All in favor? That is unanimous, so carried. We will now move on to bylaw 5.1, bylaw for approval. Resolution, please.
Be it resolved that the following bylaw, 01/2025 confirmatory, be deemed read a first, second, and final time and passed by council at the special council meeting held January 16th, 2025.
Do we have a mover? Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Popke. All in favor? Now move on to 6.1, motion to adjourn. Resolution, please.
That the special council meeting of January 16th, 2025 be adjourned at 2:11 p.m.
Do we have a mover? Councillor Tripp, second by Councillor Levesque. All in favor? Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you. Today is Thursday, January 16th, 2025. It is 3 p.m. We are in the Township meeting at 19 Parnell Street. I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Resolution, please.
Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Greater Madawaska calls to order the January 16th, 2025 regular council meeting at 3 p.m.
Do we have a mover? Councillor Tripp, second by Councillor Popke. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Please stand for O Canada. Thank you. Please be seated. As we gather in chambers, I'd like to acknowledge on behalf of Council and our community that we are meeting on the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for the rich history. And we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We'd also like to thank all generations of people who have taken time and care of this land for thousands of years. Thank you very much. Miigwech. Now move on to 4.1, approval of agenda.
That the agenda of the council meeting of January 16th, 2025 be approved as presented.
Do we have a mover? Councillor Popke, second by Councillor Levesque. Everybody's had a chance to review this. All in favor? That is so carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to 5.1, approval of minutes. Resolution, please.
Be it resolved that the following minutes are approved by council, December 5th, 2024, regular council meeting.
Thank you. Do we have a mover? Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Tripp. We've had time to review these. All in favor? So carried. Thank you. Now move on to 5.2, accepting the minutes. Resolution, please.
Be it resolved that the following minutes are accepted by council, October 15th, 2024, Recreation and Culture Committee, November 4th, 2024, Canada Day Committee, November 26th, 2024, Recreation and Culture Committee.
Thank you. Do we have a mover? Councillor Levesque, second by Councillor Popke. We've all had an opportunity to review these. Is there any concerns? There is none seen. All in favor? Thank you. So carried. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? There is none seen. Thank you. I'd like to start by saying that this is our first meeting of the year 2025, so Happy New Year to everyone that's viewing this and all in the chambers. Since our last regular council meeting, I represented the township in six meetings. I've also represented the township at 6 community events. On Wednesday, January 1st, 2025, I sent the following email to council and CAOs, and I'd like to read it so that the community can hear it. To all, as we step into 2025, I'm filled with immense pride and optimism for the future of Greater Madawaska. Together, we have made remarkable strides in fostering the community in a vibrant, inclusive, and forward-thinking, and I'm confident that we will do that this year without any exceptions. Our innovations we've outlined for 2025 have underscored our shared commitment to growth and sustainability. For our Seniors Active Living Center, pending successful grant, we are exploring opportunities to support and grow the Calabogie Medical Center, a land acquisition review for the community services, recreation trails review to our villages, and waterfront master plan. These projects reflect our determination to balance progress with well-being of our constituents. As we develop strategies to manage our infrastructure assets effectively, we are not just planning for today, but we're ensuring there is a resilient future for all generations of this area. It is my hope that we approach the challenges and opportunities of the coming year with the same enthusiasm and collaboration that we have defined our work so far. By engaging with our community through sessions, working groups, and surveys, we reaffirm and promise to listen and act honestly in transparency and with passion. As leaders, we have the privilege and responsibility to make decisions that reflect values, aspirations of the people we serve. Let's remain fiscally and morally grounded, ensuring that every action we take honors the trust of that our constituents have placed in us. I thank you for your unwavering dedication and hard work. Together, let's make 2025 a year of transformative progress in Greater Madawaska. I'm wishing you, all your families, a healthy, prosperous, and joyful new year. And I just want to personally thank this council for how we've come together, the amount of work that we've done on behalf of our constituents, and thank you. And I just thought it was appropriate to read it at this time. Thank you. We'll move now to 8.1, Public Works Department Bylaw 05-2025, Boundary Road Agreement with North Frontenac. Resolution, please.
The council approves bylaw 05-2025 to enter into a boundary road agreement with the Township of North Frontenac.
Thank you. Do we have a mover? Councillor Popke, second by Councillor Thompson. Do we need any background on this, please? Have we all read it? Okay. All in favor? That is so carried. Thank you. Planning and Building Department, Building Year-End Report, Information Item. Is this going to Chris? Please.
Okay, thank you. So this is just a report to show all the permits that were issued for the whole year of 2024. And it shows a comparison of what permits were issued in 2023. Also, on the first page, it shows the revenues collected for building permits, septic permits, and also the development charges that were collected for both years in comparison. And I guess if council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council on this information item? It's possibly not exactly related to this, but I remember last time we were talking and we noticed that building and the septics the numbers were off. Is there or is there any update on how we coordinated that?
I think this is a little bit different. The second page is a little bit different report from our software. So it doesn't actually show septics, but the septics are included within, if you look in underneath the single unit dwellings where it says includes garages and carports, the septics are included
in that. Yeah. Okay, thank you. That clears that up. Is there any other questions, comments? Well, thank you. That's the information item. Thanks. Now move on to 9.2, bylaw 03-2025, appointment of committee of adjustment. Resolution, please.
That council adopt bylaw 3-2025 being a bylaw to appoint a committee of adjustment for the corporation of the Township of Greater Madawaska for 2025.
Thank you. Do we have a mover? Councillor Levesque, second by Councillor Thompson. Background?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report from the Planning Department is really today just to reappoint the members of council to be the members of the Committee of Adjustment. We are reviewing the policies and procedures for the Committee of Adjustment because those haven't been kind of updated for a few years. Had hoped to have that for today as well, but so that'll come hopefully to the February meeting. But because the bylaw passed in early 24 lapses, we needed to get this bylaw in front of you today to basically reappoint the 5 members of council as the Committee of Adjustment to go forward.
Thank you. Are there any questions, concerns, comments, discussion items from council? None? All in favor? That is unanimous, so carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to 9.3, bylaw 04-2025, Parkland Contribution Bylaw. Resolution, please.
The council approved bylaw 04-2025 to implement a parkland contribution bylaw for the township.
We have a mover. Councillor Popke, second by Councillor Tripp. Background, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is bringing an updated policy to you. The Planning Act gives municipalities the authority to take land or cash in lieu of land when development happens, development being residential lot creation, commercial or industrial development. Historically, the township has collected cash in lieu of parkland at the time of subdivision creation, and there's a reserve fund that holds some money from that. It does not look like this township has collected a parkland contribution when lots are created by severance historically, although we are entitled to do that. So, and I did see in the zoning bylaw project last year that EcoView did that option came up. So here I am recommending that we collect cash in lieu of parkland when lots are created by severance. There is a formula under the Planning Act where we could require a property owner to get a property appraisal and calculate the parkland contribution fee based on the value of the land. My recommendation to you is that we just make this simple and just have a flat rate. And I have given you a couple of comparisons for nearby rural townships. So that's the recommendation for the lots to be created by severance, is that we just collect a flat rate, slightly more for waterfront lot creation. And then when lots are created through plans of subdivision, we need to look at those on a case-by-case basis. Sometimes it might be appropriate to take some land in a subdivision for park purposes, keeping in mind that if we do that, it becomes public land that we now need to maintain and may have some expectation to put some infrastructure and so on. So those should be considered on a case-by-case basis. Otherwise, if council wants to take a cash contribution for parkland for a subdivision, I would recommend we continue to follow the process we do now, which is that the developer provides an appraisal and we calculate the cash contribution for lots in a subdivision and lots created, not lots, commercial and industrial development, that we continue to use the appraisal method for that. So a bit of a missed opportunity, I think, that we're catching up on here to collect a bit of parkland fee when lots are created by severance. Happy to answer questions if you have any.
Thank you. Questions from Councillor Thompson.
Hi, this is great. I'm glad you caught this. What is the process to decide that is used to decide whether or not we'll take cash or parkland?
Thank you. That's really up to the township to decide, and I haven't proposed any kind of policy here. I guess that's something we could talk about going forward if we wanted to have a policy. Typically, in my experience, as a development comes forward, the municipality would just look at those on a case-by-case basis. Is their development big enough to warrant taking some land? And under the Planning Act, in a residential subdivision, that could be up to 5% of the land in a subdivision, in a landholding. So on a case-by-case basis, does the municipality want to have 5% of the land? Are we then prepared to, as I said, put some infrastructure in that park block to meet the needs of the residents? Does the developer share or pay for that infrastructure? So it's really, case-by-case, whether the development is close enough to benefit from existing parks, recreation trails in the township, or warrants something to be developed within the subdivision itself. Again, case by case, and thinking the cost of establishing a park in a subdivision, there's a benefit to the residents, obviously, but also a cost to the township because it's another piece of land that we need to potentially maintain playground infrastructure, cut the grass, shovel snow, that kind of thing. So I guess all that to say, no formal policy at this point. It's something we could talk about at the staff level and bring back if you'd like to have a policy. Otherwise, in my experience, case by case, the municipality would consider if they want to take land instead of cash.
Thank you. Follow up? Oh, it's not on.
Yes, but isn't that just, doesn't that rest with the county? That decision rest with the county, or?
No, in this case, for parkland, it would be up to the municipality where the development is taking place to decide if they want land or cash in lieu.
Okay, and we could do a policy on that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask another
Supplemental?
question, or do we want?
If you're on a roll, go for it.
Okay.
Then I'll shut you down.
And I understand that people might say, why do I need to pay this to contribute to parks when it's just my property, right? But in theory, that means there could be another dwelling, which means more use of parkland. So would there be a consideration if a multi-unit dwelling went on that lot? Is there any consideration for, the purpose of is it a single unit? Like, how do we make sure that multi-unit development pays for parks in the future?
Okay, so yes, the idea is that when we create new lots in a municipality, residential lots, thinking of first, that's likely going to bring another household who might want to use the infrastructure and parks facilities in a municipality. So the Planning Act gives us the ability to collect some funds to put towards those community parks and facilities. So new residents can share in the cost of those. I think the way this is written, new single lots created by severance would pay a flat rate, all other types of residential uses. So if there was a multiple residential development being considered, we would follow the appraised value calculation under the Planning Act, but it's based on the value of the property. It's 5% of the value of the land, not so much the number of housing units in a multiple residential building.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns, discussion items from council? There are none seen. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And I believe, Robin, you're up next. So Steve, I think you and Chris can, or Steve, you still on the agenda? I don't think so, are you? Okay. Thank you. We'll now move on to 10.1, Finance Administration Department, Bylaw 062025, voting methods for the 2026 election. Robin. Oh, resolution, please, first.
The council approved bylaw 06-2025, being a bylaw to authorize the use of alternative voting methods, vote and vote counting equipment, and advance voting in the Township of Greater Madawaska for the 2026 municipal election.
Thank you. Do we have a mover? Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Levesque. Background, please, Robin.
Thanks. So the next municipal election, obviously quite a while from now, but October 2026. In order to get started with the planning, we need to decide on the voting method. The Municipal Elections Act states that a municipality can pass a bylaw authorizing electors to use an alternative voting method that does not require electors to attend a voting place to vote. So the last two elections were done by telephone and internet. We had voter assistant and help centers in all the wards for multiple days at each location to accommodate the internet voting if people didn't want to do it from home. And currently staff is participating in an elections working group with representatives from multiple municipalities and sharing support and insights. We did the similar thing for the 2022 election, and several groups several municipalities from that group want to do a joint RFP again, which again we did in 2022 to secure a vendor for the services for the internet and telephone voting. So staff is recommending that council approve this bylaw authorizing the telephone and internet voting so that we can get in on that RFP in the near future. And staff does plan to highly promote more than in the past, of voter participation and the voter assistance centers to try to get more voter participation than in the past. And yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns, discussion items from council? Councillor Thompson?
Hi, yes, the remote does work with this population, most of whom in October are probably at home in another township at the time. I'm curious, I know this isn't related to this bylaw, but I'm wondering if this would be the time to ask if we can get whatever company we get, if we can break down where the votes for mayor are coming from, so that we know if they're coming, what the total is from Ward 1, Ward 2, and Ward 3 for the mayor, so we get an idea of which parts of the township are voting for the mayor. I think that's useful.
It's possibly part of the result system. You mean from the 2022 election or moving forward, the results
moving
of the
forward, because we
next
couldn't
one?
get it because we didn't ask for it in time
Oh, okay.
last time.
Okay, I can
Yeah.
ask on that with the
Yeah.
service provider that we do sign a contract with.
Yes, that would be good. And once again, not related directly to this, because yes, we will approve it, I think. But I think last time, the in-person voting on the final day was only available in one location, and that was, I believe, at the township office.
I would have to look back at the help center dates, but
'Cause
I'm
I-
pretty sure it was.
Yeah, I did get some concerns from people saying, I didn't know I couldn't vote in person on that
On
date.
the day of.
Yeah.
I think that would be included in more of our promotional and media of if you want to go to a center to vote, it'll have to be done on these days, which we had at least 2 days in each.
I know,
Yeah.
but there were still people that didn't get the
That didn't
message.
realize that voting day
I'm
wasn't
just saying,
necessarily
if
voting
possible,
day.
I know that might mean more person power, but to have
To have a help
the
center
very
on
last,
the day
on
of.
the last day of voting, which a lot of people leave it to the last day, if possible, at least for, an hour or two in each place.
I'll make note of that.
Because people are kind of like that, leave it to the last minute. But thank you, yes.
Thank you. Any other, Councillor Tripp?
Just on the RFP, in the 2022 election, there was quite a delay at the end of the voting process in getting the material in. If that could be considered in the RFP when you're setting up the terms of reference for it?
The delay of the results?
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Levesque?
Just a brief point on what Councillor Thompson just said. That'll be part of your requirements for the RFP, not finding out with the vendor after the RFP.
Sorry, say that again?
So what was the requirement again for?
She wants a breakdown of
Yeah,
where the mayor's results are from.
Would be part of your RFP. So that all vendors then respond and say, so if it's a hard and fast requirement, or if it's a nice to have, they can list both. And then you can decide as the recipient, yes, I want that vendor because I want that feature.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns, discussion items? There are none. Oh,
Can I just comment? On the last election, there was voting options for all of the areas on the last day. So it was more of a concern about closing at 8 o'clock, where the election was closing at 8 o'clock, where we would have been at the DACA Center till noon and at the Danby Griffith Lions Club till 5. Was that more of the concern? Because they're all on October 24th. So I just wanted to clarify, because I don't want to repeat this, and then all locations there was.
On the day of,
Yeah.
just not right till closing time.
That's right.
So, advertising.
Okay, then that might be hard to avoid.
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you.
thank you. Thank you, Renee. Any further discussions? No, all in favor? So carried. Thank you. We'll move on to 10.2, Appointment Recreation and Culture Committee Member. Resolution, please.
The council approved the appointment of Kurt Weibacher to the Recreation and Culture Committee.
Thank you. Do we have a mover? Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Tripp. Background, please.
In November, the Recreation and Culture Committee received a resignation from one of the members, Michelle. She was very enthusiastic, passion for recreation, but time constraints have made it difficult for her to commit. So, and as per the terms and references, we do need 6 volunteer members plus the council member. So we needed to fill that 6th position again. And Mr. V. Kurt, he had submitted and was interested in the vacancy that we had in August. So he was approached and eagerly accepted. And he actually came to the meeting we had last week, enthusiastic, interested, and staff's recommending appointing him to finish off.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns? There are none seen. I've met Kurt many times. He's extremely enthusiastic, extremely knowledgeable, and very passionate about everything he does. So I think he'll be very good on this well-established committee. So thank you. Is there any other discussions? No? All in favor? So carried. Thank you. We now move on to bylaw 08-2025, interim tax levy resolution, please.
That council approved bylaw 08-2025 being a bylaw to provide for an interim tax levy on all properties and to provide for payment of taxes and penalties and interests of 1.25%.
Thank you. Do we have a mover? Councillor Levesque, second by Councillor Tripp. Background, please.
This is an annual bylaw to allow for interim tax billing in February. The interim tax billing is 50% of the prior year in 2024, and then once the final tax rate is passed, which is normally in May, we would be approving that levy for the final tax billing. So this is simply to just approve 50% of 2024 to be billed in February.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns from council? There are none seen. All in favor? That is unanimous, so carried. Thank you. Move on to section 10.4, bylaw 02-2025, temporary borrowing.
That council approved bylaw 02-2025 being a bylaw to temporarily borrow money until taxes and other revenues are received up to $1 million. And furthermore, that council direct the mayor and treasurer to sign the agreement.
Thank you. Mover, please. Councillor Levesque, second by Councillor Tripp. Oh, we did that already. No, we didn't. Never mind. Not this one. It's going way too quick today. Sorry, people. Background?
This is another regular annual bylaw. This one simply is to allow for $1 million in borrowing should we require it. We haven't required it, and we don't anticipate to, but this is to ensure that the funds are there and available.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns from council? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Move on to section 10.5, municipal grant application, Calabogie Market. Resolution, please.
That council approve the municipal grant application for the 2025 Calabogie Market for the 2025 summer season.
Thank you. Do we have a mover? Councillor Thompson. Seconder, Councillor Palpke. Background, please.
So this would be our first request to have funds, or fees waived through the new process of application. So we have the Calabogie Market they're under a new direction or a new leads, I guess. And they're looking to waive the fees for the Calabogie rank surface on Saturdays from 10 to 1. So the value for the waiving of fees is $2,450. The application went through the process of really determining the benefit to the community and recognizing that some of the businesses that come to the market are not from Greater Madawaska. There is a benefit to our residents to be able to procure some items within the area and really bring in some businesses in that way. So we are, through the application, we are recommending that we waive the fee for 2025.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns from council? Councillor Levesque.
Thank you, Renee. The note at the tail end of the paragraph about the rental for any weddings that happen to crop up, I know that came up last year, so they're going to be aware of that as part of the agreement, I assume?
Yes, and then last year would have been the similar. They were notified at the rental estate that they would not. I think last year they may have posted that it was more of a last minute, but in this, we provide proper notification. We've actually notified them already that we're considering an event for ourselves in June.
Okay.
So they're aware, and we're working back and forth for that. And then we've agreed to discuss other options should that be the case.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Popke.
Does this waiving of the fee include the insurance and whatnot, or do they still have to pay their own insurance?
They would still do the insurance.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Okay. One question as it came up last time with the last group is in their business case, they made an agreement not to charge vendors to be at the event. And then eventually they were upset that they couldn't charge vendors. So because they couldn't do advertising because they didn't have the finances. So I'm just wondering, how is this any different? Are they going to be charging for vendors or do they have the ability, I guess is that I'm asking?
As per their budget, they are charging for vendors. When they approached the township to discuss waiving of fees, we recommended that they not proceed with waiving of vendors for a few reasons. I mean, you're not bringing in funds, you're not committing. If you can't commit somebody, they can, cancel a last minute. So you can see in their budget, they're waiving the fees. They're asking us to waive the fees, and they're actually putting a vendor fee, which is not significant. I want to say it was something like $20, but they're reallocating those funds to be able to advertise and promote, and bring in entertainment, which was a concern for them at the time. So yes, this is resolved through this process.
Okay, thank you. I may have missed it in the application, or it may have been outside of it, but thank you for that clarification. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Councillor Thompson?
I just love it when a plan comes together. We've got this policy now. We can see the benefit. We can see the cost-benefit analysis. Like, this is just really nice to see things ticking along like this. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll now put it to a vote. All in favor? That is unanimous, so carried. Thank you. 10.6, bylaw 07-2025 to amend bylaw 20-2024, license of occupation, Madawaska Street, docks. Resolution, please.
The council approved bylaw 07-2025, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 20-2024, license of occupation agreement with dock owners on Madawaska Street, specifically to remove section 2.1 of Schedule A. This license will expire on October 31st.
Thank you. Do we have a mover? Councillor Levesque, seconder, Councillor Popke. Background, please.
When we brought forward the license of occupation agreement last year, the intent was to have a temporary licensing with an expiry of, I want to adjust that, it's October 31st, 2024, to be able to assess what would we like to do with that property. Right at this point, we have in the work plan for 2025, consultation for developing a village and waterfront plan. And then council also added and approved a dock going on Madawaska Street for public use. Given that these circumstances are kind of adjusting the needing, kind of piloting docks there while reviewing what we're going to do with that property, we'd like to amend the agreement to have the expiry date of 2024. This allows us to be able to be more flexible with that piece. There is still a component within the agreement that says that at time given a notice period, we are able to to cancel the agreement. So there's still something in place, but I would prefer not to need to have these discussions annually with the property owners and just them realize that it's open right now and they've been approved and they just provide insurance and we can move forward with the agreement until there's a plan or until there's a change that council recommends.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns, discussion items? Councillor Levesque had his hand up first. Councillor Thompson?
This might be it. Thank you. So when this happens and the waterfront development's completed, will those property owners then be issued a different type of statement or process, or how is that going to work?
Yeah, so the intent would be a few things. When we're undergoing this village and waterfront plan, we really are hoping to get the waterfront property owners engaged in the process. That's going to be really important. And then from that, it's going to derive whatever that plan is. Whatever that plan is when this agreement would adjust, yeah. So from that, we'd be recommending to council a different type of agreement.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson?
I'm just curious with the, if we proceed with a secondary plan for the Calabogie area, how this waterfront thing will play into that planning process.
If we were to proceed with the secondary plan, we do envision that plan along with the village and waterfront would kind of merge into its own project because they overlap each other. So there's that piece where there's this merging, and then but still considering community and public input to move forward. It would, yeah. So at this point, we don't know the implications, but we would go through it as part of this process.
Supplemental?
So no firm decisions will be made on the waterfront until we have a full plan, or like how will it be integrated?
Right now, what we're considering is that, one, we want the agreement for the waterfront, and then two, we want to better develop a plan, and then from there, so I think it's a bit hard to, provide guidance for that future piece, because we want to wait till we have public consultation and council sees that and sees what you want to do. Obviously, there's at any point council were to direct us to do something otherwise, then we would proceed with it. But at this point, it's like an ongoing project, and until we have more clarity, at this point, we're just trying to remove that deadline so we can develop a plan.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns, discussion items? There are none seen. All in favor? That is unanimous, so carried. Now move on to information item 10.7, raise the roof hockey tournament information. And I believe this is yours, Renee?
Yes, so this memo is just to provide council with a bit of an update regarding the 2025 Raise the Roof hockey tournament. We had some bit of social media pieces regarding the Township and the Lions Club's participation and support for the event. So it just provides you a bit more of the discussions that were happening. The Township and the Lions Club has been very supportive of the Raise the Roof group in organizing and fundraising for some years. The event has grown substantially since the beginning, and so we've had to make some adjustments to requirements for liquor licensing, and then the Township has the new waive the fee policy or fee waiving policy, and with both of those, it would have caught the organizers. It just didn't give them enough time to be able to prepare for the hockey tournament. So did contact Mr. Charbonneau. We had a great conversation, and the intent right now is for them to start planning to have the event back in 2026. It's not to cancel the event, it's just to better prepare for the changes. And then we have received the tournament funds were raised in 2024, which was $15,000, and they will remain we have a Raise the Roof reserve fund. So as this group is specifically raising funds for Raise the Roof. So we've kept that those fund secures intended for, they've talked about putting glass at the rink. We applied for a grant, we weren't successful. We'll continue to do that and possibly be able to supplement with that fund to be able to keep investing into the rink in Calabogie.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments on the information item? And I know some municipalities are shutting down rinks, so it might be a good opportunity to see what we can get from demolition. So, thank you for that. And we'll now move on to 11.1, Police Board. Councillor Tripp, resolution, please.
The council approves the granting of access of the township's TPON account by the South Ottawa Valley OPP Detachment Board for the sole purpose of an application to the Ministry of Ontario Solicitor General for 25 to 2027 funding under the Mobile Crisis Rapid Response Team Grant.
Thank you. Do we have a mover? Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Levesque. Background, please, Councillor Tripp.
Thank you. This is a request to the township to provide access to the TPON, Transfer Payment Ontario. It's an electronic form that is used to provide money to organizations from the province. The police board structure, being relatively new and just starting now to get its foundational elements in place, does not have a TPON account. So we have no vehicle through which to accept money from the province at this time. We are looking at options to put one in place quickly, but that will take some time to do. We have a time-sensitive grant that's just become available to us. It's an ongoing grant that provides funding for a crisis mental health worker, an individual to sit in the police detachment and to be at resource to officers who are on 911 calls and are engaged in challenging situations with people that have mental health issues. The program has been running for some time, as I said. This is just the renewal process for the grant. It is a one-time financial transaction. So the money comes in. The last year grant was for $120,000 for the year, approximately. We're expecting double that because it's a 2-year grant. The money does not flow to the board. It would come in through the TPON to Greater Madawaska. The project is managed financially through the Pembroke Regional Hospital, who is the center for mental health in the area. They do the screening, the hiring, managing payroll, managing all elements of that individual, and the OPP is accountable for the reporting of the activities under the grant. So there's no work other than to be a receptacle to receive the money. On receipt, the hospital, the Pembroke Regional Hospital would send an invoice to the town for the operational grant. The check would be written, and that ends the transaction. So it's a temporary one-time request. Because of the sensitivity of timing, it's due the 28th of January. And the police have written the grant. They do all of that labor. It's been done. There's been conversations with our treasurer to ensure that the capacity is not an issue. And she was comfortable with that as well. So it would be a matter of access being provided to the detachment commander to upload the grant and have it submitted into the province.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments, concerns? Councillor Levesque.
Thanks, Rob. Just a question around separation. I don't know anything about the system. Does it allow you to have a separate channel just for the OPP and it's strictly managed by that and then oversaw by the township?
For this particular grant?
Yeah.
No, the grant would come in to the township and the board would have the legal entity to oversight. The OPP cannot receive. They're the delivery agent. So the grant would come into the township through its TPON account. There would be the invoicing. The monies would go to the hospital. They're accountable for the governance of the funds and the reporting on the funds. OPP is responsible for just the reporting on the program. The board has overall responsibility. So going forward, once we have a TPON, it would come to the board and the board would have that oversight. The reason that this has been I'm looking at the term, but in chatting with the treasurer, there was a comfort because it's very limited in terms of transactional risk. It's money coming in, bouncing to the hospital. And then the reporting is done at the end of the term by OPP and the grant's closed.
Yeah, I guess my question was really about the money in the account. So there's other money coming into an account or accounts to the system. So once it comes into the account or accounts, who has access to it? How
So
is
the
that
money
managed?
doesn't go through the TPON account, it's just the application portal.
Okay.
So this is an application portal. All we're doing is we're going into TPON, we're applying for that grant on behalf of them. They're supplying us, like we're going to export the application, they're going to fill it out, we upload it, it gets approved, they put the money in our account, we transfer it over, and then at the end, they have to report back.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Thompson?
I'm just not clear on how the whole thing works. Is this Greater Madawaska? Or, like, it's a regional policing board, so I'm just wondering what our portion, it's not related to this. I mean, we should definitely get that account, but yeah, I'd like to know how it works. Thanks.
Sorry, I didn't quite get the question. Is it the,
Well, it's a regional board, and you're saying the money flows into our account for a service provider that is regional, and I'm just wondering why us? Does it go through I don't know how it works.
thank you. It could have been any one of the 7 municipalities. In the interest of time and efficiency and the scheduling of this board meeting at this time to meet the January 27th deadline, this was the most effective and efficient way. As I said, we will be looking for our own TPON account. So this is very much a one-time ask, only because of the sensitivity around timing and the importance of the grant to have that individual in the office, in the detachment. So it could have gone to any of the other 6. This was just simplistic in terms of the timing, and because it's a limited burden to any township. It's just transactional at this point.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Call a vote. All in favor? That is unanimous, so carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to 11.2, Canada Day Committee. Councillor Tripp, you are back on top there.
Perfect, thank you. There's very little to report. We have a meeting of the committee next week where we will start to launch our work plan for the period January through till Canada Day. So the main work starts up now. I can report that the chair of the committee reached out and met with and presented to the Recreation Committee, which was one of the mandates to connect the two. Went quite well, and we again reinforced the key message that you'll hear a lot is we're still looking for volunteers. Thank you. So there'll be much more in the next report to the council.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Now move on to 11.3, Recreation and Culture Committee. Councillor Levesque.
Thank you. This will be a brief one, verbal update. We met this week, January 14th, and we welcomed our new member, Kurt Biebacher, as we mentioned earlier. So Kurt was ready to go with some new suggestions and ideas, so that was good. We're getting involved with the Winter Carnival on a couple of fronts. One is we've been asked to organize the children's activities, and one of our members are taking that on. And of course, the trivia night on February 14th, so keep watching for that. There'll be more information about that. We already have our prizes lined up, and people are going to be running it, and I expect it's going to be more popular than it's ever been. So we're also preparing for that, because I know the bingo recently was very popular, and we've reached a capacity issue, so we've reached out to figure out what the capacity issue and what we need to do in case we run into that. So that's pretty enthusiastic anticipation, so we'll see what happens. As Councillor Tripp mentioned, we had a presentation and discussion with the chair of the Canada Day Committee, Jane Weir, and we talked about the committee continuing to build on successes and any new changes that have come in last year, particularly the Lumberjack Day and the donations by various families and funding and so on. And of course, we did talk about volunteers and the difficulty it is to zero in and get volunteers up to the plate. So we had some good chat about that and offered a couple of suggestions, and one is maybe a little more focus on what the volunteers you need specifically. So talking about times of day or specific things that people can actually identify that might be related to their talents or available resources, such as, you know, I need a truck in the morning only versus a truck in the afternoon, that kind of thing. And we did also talk about the amalgamation and joining of the Recreation Committee with, or vice versa, the Canada Day Committee with the Recreation and Culture Committee. And we really didn't have a resolution, but there was a good discussion around that. So that's probably something to take back offline. And that's about it. Any
Thank you.
comments, questions?
Councillor Thompson.
The library is about to develop their programs for the summer. At our upcoming meeting, I would like to be talking with them of how we can extend that to the other wards. Probably the best way would be to piggyback on other things that are going on in those wards, and you know, a coordination would be nice. Do you have any thoughts of how best to manage that, or is that something you can talk to, your committee can talk about, or maybe do we need a joint, at least a Zoom meeting to figure out how we can make things happen?
Well, one thing that we weren't able to talk about because one of our members was not present, but we didn't talk about the upcoming things that are happening during the summer and the various things in terms of the strategy. And then we have our new member on board. So the next meeting, we'll start talking a little more about what that plan looks like, particularly as we move into the spring and summer months. And maybe that's an opportunity to kind of intersect at that point. I don't know whether it's whether somebody from the library come to the meeting to discuss that, maybe share what the plans are for the library sees, and then also vice versa, what we see as planning for the committee, if that helps. I won't be present, and I don't know if you will be either, but.
Yeah, if you could let me know the dates of your meetings, and I'll let you know the dates of mine for the library board, and we could figure something out. But it'd be nice to, you know, I've been kind of spinning my wheels on this one, trying to figure out a way to make things happen without costing extra money for the library. Well, thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll work in the background.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments on the information item? There are none. Thank you, Councillor Vec. We'll now move on to 12.1, Solve the Crisis Campaign. And that's just something I've brought forward for your review that I'd like you to take a look at. A resolution, please.
That council support the resolution adopted by council of the city of Markham on December 18, 2024, supporting the solvethecrisis.ca campaign and requesting that the provincial and federal governments take action to address the growing mental health, addictions, and homelessness crisis in Ontario, and that a copy of the resolution be sent to the Prime Minister, the Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities, the Premier of Ontario, the Deputy Premier and Minister of Health, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Minister of Children, Community and Social Services, the Associate Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, our local MP, and our local MPP.
Thank you. Do we have a mover? Councillor Tripp, second by Councillor Levesque. Background is that the city of Markham has started this campaign in regards to mental health and homelessness. They're asking the province to officially make homelessness and health policies a priority. And they're also asking the federal government for the same. We are simply, in this resolution, showing our support for their efforts and for this Solve the Crisis campaign. It was just within the package, and you all had a chance to read it. And if you have any questions, please let me know. There are none. All in favor of supporting? Thank you. That is unanimous. We'll now move on to section 12.2, property taxation implications related to non-market valuated for electricity industry properties. And this is a motion brought forward by myself as well. Resolution, please.
That council support resolution number 121124-02 carried on December 11th, 2024 by the Council of the Municipality of Kincardine, requesting that the province undertake an immediate review and update the property tax assessment model for properties within the electricity industry, and that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Premier of Ontario, the Minister of Energy and Electrification, the Minister of Finance, our local MPP, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario.
Thank you. Mover? Councillor Tripp, second by Councillor Popke. And background of myself is that since 2012, payment in lieu from energy company or energy has not been increased. It's been stagnant. I think the cost of living has gone up, I believe 37.4% since that time period, but yet no increase in the electrical market property. So this is a resolution brought forward by Kincardine, and we are simply adding our support to this resolution. Any questions? There are none. Call for a vote. All in favor? That is unanimous, so carried. I will now move on to bylaws 13.1, bylaw to approve.
Be it resolved that the following bylaw, 09-2025, confirmatory, be deemed read a first, second, and final time and passed by council at the regular council meeting held January 16th, 2025.
Thank you. Do we have a mover? Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Levesque. And do we have any questions about the confirmatory? Good. Okay. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. 14.1. Motion to adjourn. Resolution, please.
That the regular council meeting of January 16th, 2025 be adjourned at 3:57 p.m.
Do we have a mover? Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Tripp. All in favor? That is unanimous, so carried. Thank you.